Well, all right. Happy Friday. Happy May 19th for those of you tuning in live. It's another amazing episode with an amazing guest. And I think by the end of this show, you will agree with me as well. I am super excited to be hosting my friend, former mentor from Minnesota, Erik Therwanger. And I just want to do a couple of reminders before I start the conversation with Erik. If you're tuning in live or you're listening to this on the replay, you can always find us if you want to tune in live and ask questions of our guests. The places that you want to go to are my Facebook community, Healthy and Wealthy and Wise, the podcast community. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can also follow me on LinkedIn as well. And so if you're tuning in live, I see a few eyeballs on right now. So please comment below #live and what city, state, or country you're tuning in from. We have a global community and family here. So again, comment #live and where you're tuning in from. And again, same thing, if you are tuning in on the replay, #live and, replay rather, and let us know where you're tuning in so we can acknowledge you later. And if you see value in today's show, sharing is caring. Please hit the share button with your community. So Erik, it's been a long time coming. I've been wanting to have you on my show, I think since year 1, and here I am in year 3. So you're amazing. You're a high in demand person, jet setting all over the country and changing lives with your company, Think Great. You're a Marine Corps veteran, author, speaker that I actually met in Minnesota when I lived there at workshops and events.
Yeah.
Fun facts about Erik is he's an avid movie buff. So I do have a question for you before we get too far on that. You're a fisherman and you would do anything for the veteran community. So Erik, thank you so much for being here today.
Lois, it was worth the wait. It is so great to finally be here. And I'm so proud of the journey that you're on. This is amazing.
Yeah, a little bit you guys don't know is when I was kind of like in search of my truth, my passion, I was so inspired by seeing Erik up at the front of the room and like, I want to be like Erik when I grow up. And the ironic thing is in this process of healing, I found myself and now it's just such a beautiful thing to be able to have you on my show. And we were talking about that before we got on here, how a lot of times we see other people and we want to be like them, but it's been so profound to find my own medicine and my own magic and such an honor to have you on my show today. So I have to ask you first question, what is your favorite movie?
Boy, I get asked that a lot. I have a lot of different genres, but okay, here's my consistent answer through the last 40 years. Arnold Schwarzenegger's Conan the Barbarian, 1982.
I love it.
It's the guilty pleasure movie. You know, it's like, I love that movie. I grew up on Arnold and that's my all-time favorite. I mean, I have favorite horror movies or favorite military movies or whatnot, but all-time number one, that's it. I know we're going to get some comments on that, but I'm standing by it.
It's all good. No, I had to ask that since you were an avid movie buff. I love that. Yeah. I want to talk to you about today. I know you have this amazing foundation and you give back to so many military spouses, but maybe why don't we rewind the clock as to where you started and how you got where you are today?
Sure. Yeah. So, right after high school, I went into the Marine Corps. So I was 17 and a half when I enlisted. And then 3 weeks after I turned 18, I shipped out. I went to boot camp and eventually became an air traffic controller in the Marine Corps. And so there was an 18-year-old up in a control tower, talking to pilots and controlling traffic. And it seems very weird that there's 18-year-olds up there, but I was not only trained as an air traffic controller, I was developed to think and act like a leader. And so that really opened up so many opportunities for me. And just serving in the Corps, I believed I could accomplish things. It was a very challenging boot camp process, and air traffic control school was tough, but I did it and it built up a lot of confidence. And so I left the Marine Corps, used my GI Bill, went to film school in California, Southern California, Orange Coast College to start, and then the University of Southern California. So I went to the film school there and then worked in the film industry for many years. And I left the film industry for financial services, the sales side, when my wife was diagnosed with cancer. And I did that for a number of years. And then I got back into the film industry and Gina very well. And, she went through 4 different battles of 4 different cancers. And then eventually in 2016, she had passed away from cardiac arrest due to all the treatments to her heart while I was doing CPR on her. And the first responders got there, and I had been doing CPR for about 5 minutes, and they hit her twice with the defibrillator, but could not get her back. And fortunately, the gentleman, Bryce, the first responder who was on duty that night, the lead paramedic, decided to hit her again, and they did, and they got her back, and she's still with us today. And so for me, with Think Great, our company, we teach people how to think great no matter what circumstances they face. And that comes from my experiences in the Marine Corps as a caregiver, and then running a media company as a vice president. And so now, as you said, I get to go all over the country. I'm sharing ideas and strategies and tactics with business leaders and getting them to think outside of the box, but also giving them the strategies that they can apply day to day in their business to transform their greatest asset, which is also known as their people. So we
Yeah.
give them a lot of people skills. I think that's what's missing in the business sector so much today. You alluded to it earlier. There's so many people seeking out temporary fixes, right? They go see a speaker that's more hype and rah-rah than actual tangible content they can apply.
Yeah.
And they end up getting excited for a few seconds, come back, and it's the same old, same old. Now the speaker goes on, the speaker makes a ton of money, the trainer makes a ton of money, but the person that invested so much money and maybe that weekend getaway or these events, they were so filled with fluff that the excitement dwindles pretty quick, and they can't apply it into their business where their greatest asset is their people. And that's what we teach people how to do. And hey, listen, I like some hype and rah-rah. I like some motivation, inspiration. I was in the Marine Corps. We love our mojo. But at the end of the day, in the Marine Corps, nobody ever went to these weekend getaways to get fired up. We were fired up because of our identity, who we were. And we worked directly with our people. We looked out for the person to our left and to our right. We didn't escape to go somewhere. And I'm not saying there's not benefit in doing things like that. The problem is most of them don't give you the tactics to take back and apply to the masses. And that's where the issues are. And so we really create a people-centric movement within businesses to develop everyone to think and act like leaders, because that's what solves everything. So that was probably a little bit longer than what you had expected, but I got fired up because that's what we do and we love what we do.
Oh no, no, no apology needed. I would love for you to, if you could give the simplest definition, what is leadership?
So leadership, the definition, here's what's important. The definition of leadership in the dictionary is holding the office or position of a leader. And so that definition doesn't help us out that much. In other words, if you're a leader, then that's leadership is saying you just hold the office or position. What I found is each organization has a unique opportunity to create their own definition of what it means to be a leader in their organization. And that's what we help out with. So when I go into organizations, I'll say on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is leadership? And they'll always say a 10. It's a 10. It's so critical. And I said, what's your definition of what it means to be a leader here? And they said, what do you mean? And I said, well, how do you define it? If it's a 10 out of 10, what's the definition? So if you promote somebody to the position of a leader, can you share with them the definition, the purpose of what it means to be a leader? And they say, no, we can't. And so we teach them how to create a definition that is unique to their business, not their industry, but their business, what it means to be a leader in there. And then we help them wordsmith that. And it might have words like goals and success and coaching and mentoring and empowering and inspiring, but it has to be unique to them. It has to be a definition that cannot be found anywhere else.
Beautiful. I love that. That's profound, actually. And I think it's a good segue into what I know you and I are really passionate about. What we wanted to talk about today is giving and giving back. And we were going before the show, guys, we were talking about how, there's all of these books you could read, the self-help movement, the Think and Grow Rich, the Tony Robbins, you go and you spend 10 grand for a week-long seminar, and then you go back to quote unquote normal life, and the rah-rah is gone. And then you have the daily mundane, and there's got to be more than just thinking with our head and getting fired up. There's the heart brain that is all about giving and love and receiving. By the way, I also want to reiterate that, because I also was an over giver, so my cup was empty. We want to be able to give from an overflow, which a lot of business people don't do, and they think, oh, I can't give unless I have enough to give, or I give too much and then I burn out. And so there's a whole other conversation. We don't need to go down a rabbit hole, but the point is, if you excel as a leader, it's like almost like your divine birthright to give back, and you do that so well, Erik, and maybe talk about what made you launch your foundation to give back to military spouses. I mean, talk about what it is and then how you decided to launch it.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm always grateful for the opportunity to share about our foundation. We started it in 2019, so 4 years ago. We had the idea of awarding scholarships to military spouses as a way of saying thank you for all the sacrifices that they make. When we talk to people about military spouses, the light bulb goes off. It's almost like they're a forgotten community, and there's hundreds of thousands of them, and they really are, in a large extent, the glue that holds us all together in the military. And the spouse typically knows all the benefits. The spouse knows, my spouse knows where my DD 214 is, my discharge papers. I don't know where they are, but Gina knows. And so, they are very, very critical, and they didn't take the oath. They didn't sign up, but they get all of the challenges, and they make a lot of sacrifices. They're uprooted sometimes, every 3 years to move around what they call PCS in the military, permanent change of station. And so 3 years here, and then they uproot, 3 years here, and they uproot. And so they're uprooting also their goals. They're uprooting all of their dreams too. They move away from family and friends. And one of the things that we found out that they give up a lot on is their educational goals. And so the majority of military spouses have started higher education, but haven't finished it. And so years ago, Gina and I decided we want to do something in the military community. We love the idea of giving back. And we've given back for many years to cancer research organizations and fundraisers in that capacity because, Gina's, had her 4 battles of cancer. So we would love to see that eliminated.
Yeah.
But we always had it in the back of our hearts to do something for the military community. Me as a veteran, Gina's father had served in the Marine Corps. So we've always been huge supporters. And then as we were talking about it more, we realized that the military spouse really needs some help dedicated specifically to her or to him. And it really came into fruition when I was doing some trainings up and down the coast of California for the Air Wing, for the National Guard. And I was going to the Yellow Ribbon reintegration programs, and I was doing goal setting sessions for service members and their spouse pre and post deployment. And you just got to know them, and you got to talk to them and hear their struggles, and the idea that they need some help directed to them became very evident. And then the more we talked to people, we realized it was education. And then finally, Gina and I had dinner with a Marine colonel, and we were just telling him, we want to help out the spouse. And without missing a beat, he just said, you got to get them back to on track with their education goals. And it just hit us. And we said, all right, we're going to do scholarships. So the first year, 2019, our goal was 5,000 in scholarships. We had no clue what we were doing, where we would find these spouses. And we ended up awarding 25,000 out that first year. Wow. And it was awesome. And then, 2020 and 2021 were the COVID years. So there were no events that we could do. And that kind of hurt our fundraising. And yet we still gathered some funds and awarded out scholarships. 2022, our board came out and said, we want to do it again. And so last year we awarded out 50,000 in scholarships, and our goal this year is 100,000. And so we have really a nonstop applicant pool because every year there's 200,000 new service members, and many of them get married, and those spouses and even veteran spouses will qualify because maybe the service member and the spouse, he's no longer serving or she's no longer serving, but they were married during their time of service. That spouse still qualifies. So we award to any branch in any state, to any spouse, whether the service member is active duty or retired or discharged. And it's been phenomenal. And it's a great way to give back to a community that's very silent and like I said, often, forgotten.
Yeah. And you and I talked about this. Thank you so much. That's beautiful. You and I talked about my passion for helping the military with microdosing, PTSD, depression, anxiety. You forget about, I don't, we have heard different statistics about how many veterans commit suicide. I won't say any numbers because we're not exactly sure. There's a bunch, daily, every day.
There's too many. We both agree on that.
Yes.
Way too many.
Yeah, so that's part of, I think, a beautiful thing when you realize how much the military you give and you sacrifice, and then you come back, and then a lot of times caregivers, even not in the military, caregivers that care for their spouse when they're sick or ailing, they actually oftentimes die first because they're giving so much and there's no one caring for them. So let's talk a little bit about why is it so important to give? We sort of alluded to it earlier, but why is it so important to give back? What does that do for your heart and your mind?
I think that the very first time I gave back was in the Marine Corps, and they were doing the Toys for Tots program. Now, I was 18 years old. I had just gotten out of boot camp, and you come out of boot camp, you're a trained killer. You want to go do Marine Corps things, and they they send you to they sent me to go work the Toys for Tots project, and I did not want to do it. I didn't tell them that, but I was like, I'm in the Marine Corps. I don't want to have anything to do with toys. The toy I like is my M16. I mean, that's it. And once I got there, I realized how important the Toys for Tots program was. And the Marines would gather toys all year round, and toys were donated to the program. And then at the end of the year, they hand them out to all these children. And so I happened to be there when there was a Santa Claus. I pretty sure it was a Marine under there, and he had combat boots on, but he had the Santa outfit on. And some of these children, they didn't have any families. They were orphan kids, or their families didn't have any money for toys. And here we were handing out toys. And I'll tell you, the feeling that it gave me, it made me feel so good, and even made me feel better about being a Marine. So here's all this hardcore training that we had, all the discipline. And then here was something we did that was such a feel good. It made me more proud of my organization, and actually really amped me up. And I've been supporting Toys for Tots since 1987, ever since I did it the first time. We introduced clients to it. We introduced new people to it. We have so many clients that now collect toys for Tots. It's incredible. And so I speak at a Toys for Tots event frequently, and it's just, I think that what it really does is it keeps us grounded to the human side of what we do. Whether that's the military, or whether you're in real estate, whether you're in retail, hospitality, it doesn't matter. I think it keeps us grounded that we're always in the people business, and we should always give back. It makes us feel good to help out our fellow brothers and sisters out there. And you never know. You never know, the time may come when we need to be on the receiving end of somebody's generosity. So I think it comes full circle, and I think it just makes us feel complete.
100%. Yeah, there is proven studies that have shown there's actually a release of like oxytocin, which is the same, that mothers feel when their babies are breastfeeding, and there's like this beautiful exchange of love and compassion and giving. It's almost like a dopamine hit, like we were talking earlier, kind of like that rah feeling. It comes from the heart. So giving is truly life-saving for not only for the people you're helping, but for yourself, because that
I agree.
Yeah.
I think I've often said our bodies get in alignment with our minds, and vice versa. So if we're doing positive things, we have the chemicals that are created by our bodies that support that. If we're also living in stress and fear and negativity, our bodies produce chemicals related to that. And so I really believe at the end of the day, we are healthier by doing good to our fellow man and fellow woman. I really believe that. I feel that it is in our best interest to do good things for other people. And it just makes us better. It makes us better people, makes us healthier, right? So healthy, wealthy, and wise, right there. I mean, you get healthy, wealthy, and wise by doing good for other people,
Yeah, it's so funny because I was thinking that you were reading my mind. You were connecting with my heart there, because you were pretty much promoting the name of my podcast in that moment, because a lot of times people think of wealthy, and full disclosure, when I named this podcast I honestly didn't fully know the spiritual roots of it. In that first year, it was more about money. Honestly, it was my head was more about the business, the sales, the marketing, how do you close more deals and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that's bad. Okay. However, I relaunched my podcast, not like officially relaunch, because same name, same channel, same all the things. But I did my 2nd year anniversary last summer, and I said, okay, guys, healthy and specifically wealthy, completely different perspective now. It's got more spiritual roots, of more about relationships, people. People before profits, and how do you help your clients better, or giving in your case. That to me is is a sign of wealth, because you're putting others before yourself. And I feel like in this world today, especially during the pandemic, I feel like a lot of us just felt so alone and so separate. And I know for me, I was lost. I sort of forgot how important it was to give. And you don't have to give in money, right? There's other ways to give.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you can volunteer your time. There's a lot of ways that you can invest back into our communities or to people or organizations. I think that I meet a lot of wealthy people who are sad, depressed. If they only measure wealth by money, there's plenty of people that commit suicide that are wealthy. So, and the financial wealth, there's obviously nothing wrong with that. It's fine to be wealthy, but if you're not wealthy in the other side of things, the human side of things, eventually the money will stop buying you any form of happiness. And so I think you're right. You got to be able to measure wealth in many different categories, and maybe wealthy in the impact that you make in other lives. That's huge.
Yeah,
And then I think that's just that's something that's always been important to me. For us, it's not about the amount of money that we're giving out. It's about the impact that we're making to enrich these lives, these military spouse lives. And when you get a comment back like, I couldn't have gone to school without this, or I didn't see there was any hope for me going back to school, and the Think Great Foundation helped out. That's huge. So that's why I constantly do the outreach, and we're constantly finding spouses and finding sponsors. Those are our big things. And when you marry those two up, it's an amazing thing. And for them to hear, or for us to hear that we impacted their lives, it's everything for us.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I know most people have followed me. I'm a huge fan of suicide prevention and mental health. And one of my last friends committed suicide, and it was over money. So many people put their self-worth and their value on how much money they make. I made that mistake. I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. Do you have any other tips or words of wisdom about how people can give in different ways to help them live a better life?
I think you have to there's a lot of causes out there. Ours happens to be military spouses, and I'm passionate about that. And I'm also passionate about the world of cancer, right? The patients and the families. But I think it's really important to find a cause. There's no shortage of them that really means something to you. Maybe it's children, maybe it's animals, maybe who knows what it is. But I think that that's where the greatest gain comes from, when you find something you're passionate about, something that you would do every single day and not expect a single dime in return of it. I think that's where your biggest wealth comes from. It's the impact in those communities. And so I would encourage your listeners, any of them that don't have a cause that they fight for or help, to find one. Find a cause where somebody in your life has been impacted, and then go make a difference there. And it's amazing, not just giving money, not just raising money, but actually learning what the people in that community need. Like for me, I love talking to military spouses, and we've even started to document their stories on video so we can archive these things. But if you support cancer fundraising, fighting organizations, meet some of the caregivers, meet some of the patients, and listen to their stories, and it'll move you. It's never just about raising the money. Yes, the money is important and it goes out and does good things, but get to know the people in those causes, and it'll alter your life forever.
Yeah, stories
you'll make friends forever.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. Where can people find your website and find out more about your foundation?
So the foundation is thinkgreatfoundation.org, and we've got all of the information there. In fact, my email address is Erik, ERIKT, at thinkgreatfoundation.org. And you can reach out to me there. And if they'd like more information on our business, thinkgreat90.com, they can reach out to me there too. The both are connected. One's obviously the 501c3, one is the business, but we do a lot through the foundation, through our company as well, and promote it there too.
Beautiful. If there's any other burning desires or words of wisdom or thoughts in your heart that you would like to share with our listeners today of Healthy and Wealthy and Wise?
So I did a keynote speech this morning, so I'm already fired up. And I'll tell you this, and this really ties back into what we talked about, where people head out for a few days to some sort of motivational boot camp. and then come back and are kind of let down once they get back to the workplace.
Mm.
Every business leader I ever encounter, I always ask them, what's your greatest asset? They always say the same thing: people. Invest in your people, train your people, develop your people, get to know your people. You know, when I ran the media company, I got to know my team, and I got to know what really touches their souls the most. And I think that's what we need to be in the business of, is not just hiring people, but touching souls. In fact, I had a gentleman, a 2-star retired Marine general, on my podcast, and he said, my job is to touch the souls of my Marines. And I think in the world today, we would be so much better off if everybody woke up every day trying to touch somebody's soul.
Mm. I love
Really
it.
make an impact in that person. You know, if we showed up intentionally to work to touch souls, if we showed up intentionally in organizations and events to touch souls, we would be in a different world right now.
Well, and that requires an outward focus. It
It does.
requires a selfless, at least one moment, to not be thinking about, oh, woe is me, but to be seeing this other person
That's
as a
right.
light, another soul that I can be a light
Yeah,
to. And that's not always easy to remember in this day and age of high stress, go, go, go,
that's
sell,
right.
sell, sell. You know, how does
Yeah.
someone raise their consciousness? Do you have any other thoughts about that?
You know, I think that always remain genuine and sincere to who you are. I think one of the reasons that you see so many of these hype and rah-rah speakers out there is because everything is online right now, right? So somebody sees something, they go, I like that, I'm going to give it my own flavor, and they just regurgitate the same stuff. Be
Yeah,
unique. If you want to be a motivational speaker, by all means do it, but be unique. Share your uniqueness. Don't borrow anybody else's stuff. Share your story. I had a gal came up to me today after my keynote speech and just said, thank you for opening up about your story. I didn't even share that much about it. I just said I was a caregiver. I was in the Marine Corps and I was a caregiver, and it impacted her.
mm,
And after the presentation, we already received an email from her company asking me to come in and train.
wow,
So, you know, I would say this: share your story, understand your story, and
yeah.
share it in a way it can impact people. Every single person on here has a story, unique and different than everybody else's. Don't borrow people's stories, don't borrow people's content. Just share your story, create your content, and impact the world with everybody you meet.
I love it. And that's a perfect segue. I have one more question for you that I ask of all
Cool.
my guests, and you've sort of actually already answered it indirectly, but I wanna close with that question. So that was beautiful, because what I have coming up, and my listeners know, I always like to share announcements just before we start to wrap up the show. I've been sharing my story about my inner child healing journey, and I wasn't genuine, like I was sharing earlier with Erik. I saw him and as this very motivational person, and I was trying to be like him, right? And I had to figure out how to be Lois, and a lot of it for me was
Yeah,
inner child trauma that I never really released. And I see it so much in society today. It's prevalent, and even when you're in that trauma, it also makes it harder to give. Full disclosure: either you overgive way too much, and then your cup is empty, or you're just in that kind of like dark space where you don't even know how to give, because
right.
you're so inner focused on
Yeah,
this
you're just
unconscious.
consumed on everything else. Yeah.
So on Tuesday, guys, you know, I've been talking about this ad nauseum, especially after Mother's Day, thinking about, you know, some of the childhood wounds and traumas that we've experienced with mothers, fathers, caregivers, life experiences. I really hope you can sign up for my masterclass on Tuesday, May 23rd, 1 p.m. Innerchildcleansing.now.site. Just one more plug for that. If you want to give from a full cup, if you want to give from a full heart, we want you to heal, and you can't heal what you can't feel. So me and my colleague Caitlin are
Mm.
going to be loving on you for 90 minutes to unpack and uncover some of those root wounds that are holding you back from giving and living your best life. So that's my
Wow.
only announcement today. Just want to come back to you, Erik, really quickly before I forget. One last reminder: please share the show today. If you saw value in this beautiful message about giving and being authentic, genuine, sharing your story. I know you can hear this a lot, but I feel like today's show was really profound with what you do, Erik, and what you share and who
Well,
you
thank you.
are. So hit the share button, guys. And so, Erik, my favorite question to ask of all my guests at the end of every show is, when you hear the phrase healthy and wealthy and wise, what does that mean for you?
You know, I think it's really about the relationships that you have. I think for me, I think true success is having healthy, wealthy, wise relationships. You know, too many people, I think, spend their time striving for things maybe outside of the inner circle of the people that mean the most to them. So I think for me, you know, especially with a wife that's had cancer 4 times and suffered and passed away of cardiac arrest, was dead for 15 minutes, you know, having healthy relationships, it really means a lot more to me. And the wealth side of things, you know, I really believe it's being wealthy in those relationships, strong relationships where you feel close and you feel the connection, and wise. Hey, listen, we're going through this life. It's a journey. Nobody's done it before. We've got to rely on each other for wisdom and insights. And so I think that, you know, when you really look at your relationships, I would say when I hear healthy, wealthy, wise, I think about strengthening relationships in those areas.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Like you said, it was worth the wait. It was divine timing. I'll put
Awesome.
all of your information in the show notes. So guys, again, go to thinkgreatfoundation.org, and then I'll put Erik's email and everything in the show notes. We're super excited for you guys to have tune in today. I have a really cool guest coming up in 2 weeks. We don't have any guests for a couple of weeks. My next guest is John Swan. He's a musician and coach to my 2 beautiful children, talk about family
Awesome.
relationships and
Yeah.
giving back. So he's going to be on and talking about how important music is to your soul, to your mind, to your spirit, and how that can transform your children's lives as well as yours. So I hope you guys can tune in on June 2nd for that show. Until next time, guys, here's to your best health, your best wealth, and your best wisdom. Bye-bye for now.